Hello, this is Cotton Stoops and welcome back to another Lumion Legacy HTUC video. Today's video is on Meditoad. Meditoad is actually pretty interesting and is actually one of the best examples of a Lumion that can run both melee and ranged. So today's video is on how to use and counter Meditoad. From counters and checks and teammates to the sets and roles Meditoad can use, as well as its weaknesses and resistances, this video will teach you how to use and counter Meditoad. So, what role does Meditoad play is the first question we must answer, because knowing the role of a Lumion is the most important thing, and we can answer it with its base stats. Its base stats are pretty simple. Its speed tier is pretty bad. It is comparable to stuff like Sedamars and Himber, but other than that, you should not try to invest in this speed tier at all. And its HP, melee defense, and range defense are all really well balanced out, which is actually pretty comparable to Dyborg. And Dyborg, not having the best defensive typing, actually makes it seem like it's less bulkier, but with Meditoad it's actually pretty well balanced out in the bulk side, so it can take out hits from both sides of the spectrum. And melee attack and its range attack are actually its strongest feats. Its 99 range attack, while not seem impressive because it is lower than Snogar's, it is actually really good in practice. So, what role does Meditoad play? It can be a decently strong and bulky wall breaker. It isn't going to be the most strongest on the team, but overall Meditoad is going to offer a lot of damage and bulk. It does also have a lot of potential to set up. This potential is pretty good because it makes Meditoad's quote-unquote weaker attacking stats actually really high. And one more thing, it is a good check to quote-unquote weaker Lumions. What I mean by this is that Meditoad doesn't need to run a defensive set to checks to stuff like Zulong and Protagon, and with a defensive set, Meditoad can actually counter a really good wall breaker Valkyrie. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the weaknesses and resistances. Meditoad's typing is Mind and Electric. It is actually pretty good offensively, but it has 5 weaknesses to Water, Dark, Spirit, Bug, and Earth. Earth types like Sedamars, Borak, Tyrex are some great switch-ins to Meditoad. Bug types like Harvestect is pretty much the only thing you have to watch out for. Spirit types like Harvestect, Revenine, Vesperatu, Ursul. Dark types like Vesperatu and Eclipse. And water types like C.B.O, Barblast, and Luminami. These are all stuff you should be watching out for, and while particularly you do hit some of them super effectively, they're generally not the best matchup since you are slow. And 6 resistances to Air, Metal, Light, Electric, Mine, and Brawler. Air types like Zeppelin, Wintrix, Stratosaur, Sorel, Numare. Metal types like Stratosaur, Tyrex, Valkyrie, Protagon. Light types like Numare, Umanami, Valkyrie. Electric types like Zulong and Joltooth and Meditoads and other Halvantics. Mine types like other Meditoads, Shachi, Ferroglyph, Metronet, Cosmores, and Brawler types like C.B.O and Wrestlin are some good stuff to switch in on. While there are some that are iffy matchups, you generally do pretty good against most of them. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Meditoad's set. First set will be the melee wallbreaker set. The ability of choice will be Watcher or Specialization. I heavily recommend Watcher because 4 moves is greater than 1 move. That means 4 moves is better than 1 move. 1 move makes it so you are prone to 1 typing or 1 typing and more, and the same Lumion will get in on Meditoad every single time. There will be no matter how much damage you do. Generally 1 move on Meditoad is worse than 4 moves. And you also need your coverage to destroy walls. It's pretty obvious. And the personality will be very brawny, clumsy, sluggish, or you can run a defensive personality with brawny, clever, or robust, and very clumsy as the decreasing nature. Very brawny will be the set, but of course you can change to the brawny, clever, robust stuff. And Psycho Slap, Slap Down, Thunder Slam, Tase. Now this is my perfect moveset. Obviously Mega Punch is an option and there are other moves like Barter, but particularly most of the time you would want to run this moveset. Plus Mega Punch is only really for Tyrex anyway, and if you don't really want to run Tase, then Barter is what I recommend after that. And Volt Shell, Mental Shell, it's all in your mental, Power Cuffs, and Rageful Plushie will be your items of choice. Of course, Rageful Plushie is to abuse your weaknesses and you can hit a lot harder. but Volt and Mental Shell is what I would pick most of the time because they're pretty good shells to have anyway, and items as well. And of course, run Heavy Shackles if you're gonna have Barter, so yeah. And the TP's 200 HP and 200 melee attack is to max those stats out as much as possible. We're pretty slow, so it's not worth trying to outspeed anything. And its 36 speed lets it get up to 250 energy. Now this is not too important on this set, but this is important on the other set. 44 or 40 melee defense and 24 range defense. This is so we can balance out our defenses while still making our melee defense lower, so per gallon makes a melee attack boost. Meditoad's range breaker set with the ability Watcher or specialization is the ability of choice for this set. I of course told you what ability is better, so I don't really need to say anything. Personality, very smart, frail, sluggish will be your main personality. This is so we can boost the stat we're using, and of course decreases the stats we're not using. Brawny, clever, slash robust, and very clumsy will of course be your decreasing personalities, and the alternative. Thunderstrike, Peace of Mind, Hypnotize, Psycho Blast are some moves to run. Obviously, Barter is still an option, and of course Tase is an option as well. And you can also opt for a mixed Meditoad where you can run a very sluggish nature and have Brawny Smart. It's not really that optimal in my opinion, since having one Meditoad do one focus on damage is pretty much better in my opinion. You can of course opt to do that as well. And the item will be the same as last time, and 200 HP is to max it out, 200 rage attack is to max it out, 36 energy lets you get up to 250. This is so we can use 2 Peace of Minds and 3 Psycho Blasts, or 2 Peace of Minds and 4 Psycho Blasts, or 2 Peace of Minds and 4 Thunder Strikes. You can mix and match with those moves, and the defenses are the same as last time. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the Meditoad's counters and checks as well as its teammates. So, Meditoad's offensive counters and checks are pretty simple. You just want to run stuff that outspeed it and hit it super effectively. Stuff like Volcaloa, Dolodrix, Hunder, and Vespratu are some great examples. Everyone here can hit it super effectively, and fun fact, Vespratu with a little investment into the HP or max investment in the HP actually tanks 3 hits from a Shell, Psycho Blast, and Thunder Strike. So that's pretty good overall. If you do want to run a defensive one, other than Tyrex, Vespratu is pretty good. And of course there are other stuff like Tyrex, Sedamar's on here, it can be put on here, as well as Boneki. So don't think that you're just limited to these guys. Meditoad definitely has a lot of offensive checks, so yeah. And defensive counters and checks is pretty simple as last time. You just want to run stuff that can switch in on Meditoad. Now, there's not a lot. Harvesect is one of the best ones, but Tyrex is the best one because, in my opinion, most Meditoads don't run Mega Punch. They mostly run the offensive set for range. And of course, Sedamar's is pretty good. The only problem with Sedamar's is that it has to invest into one defense, and if the Meditoad on the other team is running the opposite attack for your Sedamar's, then it's pretty much dead. So with that out of the way, let's talk about its offensive and defensive teammates. Meditoad's offensive teammates are pretty simple because you just want to run stuff that can take out the earth types and stuff like that. The air types and ice types like Wintrix, Zeppelin, and Mocho are pretty good. Teclipse is also a good option because it does cover your dark weakness, and it also helps a lot with Vespratu. And Valkyrie is also a pretty good option, but I wouldn't really run it, but of course you can run it as well. And defensive teammates to Meditoad, they're pretty versatile because Meditoad is a Lumion that is pretty good on bulkier teams, mostly semi-stall. So the staple walls of these teams are of course pretty good, and these are not just the only options. You can run stuff with Meditoad like Chertiki, Tundrelin, Vanillin, stuff like that. And of course this is the same for offensive Lumions like Pyrolin, Boneki, Totab as well, and Phasenaut too. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's talk about Meditoad's conclusion and my thoughts on Meditoad. So yeah. So I always thought Meditoad is a pretty good Lumion, but its speeds here kind of just not do pretty well for it. And of course, its lack of good abilities. Obviously, Watcher is good for it, but Watcher is not really the best because, well, you're taking the hit first, which is not really the best in any scenario. So yeah, Meditoad is pretty good because it does have a pretty heavy offensive presence. It's just that it gets revenge killed pretty easily. And other than its bulk, it's not really taking a lot of hits from super effective moves, but I guess that can just be applied to anything. So Meditoad with the right team can actually be pretty good, and it's actually finding a lot of success in bulkier teams. So yeah, if you liked the video and found it informational, like the video and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And of course, remember that Zulong is still a dumpster fire.